I'm Zach from Zach's Garage, and this is our Koenigsegg Regera. So what attracted us to Koenigsegg was more the fact of the family aspect of it. So we'd been around Bugattis, friends that had Bugattis, friends that had Paganis, but it was very much you're buying from a company. The brief experience we had before we bought the Regera was most definitely this is a family and you're investing into a relationship as well as a car. Now with these niche cars, you want to have a relationship with the owners, but also the people who make it. And to be able to say that I can call the factory whenever and be able to have a nice conversation and even call Christian. I mean, I don't know any other company. You couldn't, if you owned a Bugatti, you can't exactly call the owner of the company and actually have a good relationship with them. And so that was a big factor in choosing Koenigsegg. So we owned the Agera for, I'd say, probably about 2 years. We bought it in 2017 December. The reason why we bought the Agera was because we had the Regera coming, and as mentioned before about family, we wanted it to be a part of the Koenigsegg family, and in order to be a part of that, you had to have a Koenigsegg. So we bought the Agera to more be invested into the social part of it. VMAX was quite an interesting one because obviously I'd never done top speed things. None of our family had, because we didn't have anything fast before the Agera. I mean, we had Ferraris and stuff like that, but nothing that you go, this is going to be truly epic, And so when we had the Agera, Supercar approached us and said, listen, there's VMAX, do you want to come along? And so we were a bit cautious, but we came along to it, and it slowly turned into a competition between Koenigsegg owners of who could get the top speed. So obviously the 1-to-1 held the record. Now at the point I was 18 years old, I didn't even think I'd be driving it, let alone trying to set a record. I had you in the car with me at 2:30, which was pretty outrageous, and that was something I'll never forget, being able to do 230 mile an hour in a car that we'd owned probably less than a year. So that was pretty exciting. So what happened was we ordered, the timeline's a bit odd because we ordered a Regera before we even thought about buying the Agera. The Agera came about in one afternoon. Someone said, listen, there's a car in Japan, do you want it? So we went to Geneva, and it was me and my dad. We sort of wanted to buy something that was going to be a bit more on the modern side, but a spectacle of the car collection. And I said to Dad, I'd been around Koenigsegg's, I'd met a few of the Koenigsegg owners. I was like, we should have a look at Koenigsegg. So we had a look at Koenigsegg, we also had a look at Bugatti and Pagani, but the fact that as soon as you walk onto the Koenigsegg stand, you've got Christian coming up to you, nice to meet you, here's a drink, you're sitting there, you're chatting with everyone, and instantly, before you've even considered buying a car, you automatically feel so welcome. And that was such an overwhelming thing that it was like, wow, this is a company that really is fixated on making, relationships so important. And I think we ordered about 7 cars that day. We ordered like a Regera, a Performante, all these like smaller level cars to a Koenigsegg. And in the morning, we sort of woke up and we went, God, we got to cancel some orders. But the one car we didn't cancel was the Koenigsegg, because somehow on a drunk evening it sounded like a sensible idea, and well, it's sitting behind me, so. I would say surreal. It's a long process. It doesn't take a day to build these things. We knew from the beginning, and they're very open about it. They say, listen, we're building spaceships here. There's going to be 80 cars. It's not like where you go up to Ferrari, they're building 1,000 of them. You order something like a Koenigsegg or even a Bugatti, but obviously it's 500 Chirons. There's only 80 Regeras. And so they said, listen, the wait is 2 years, but there's a good chance it's going to be more because of R&D and multiple things. And this was before you even spec the car. So depending on what you do, it can take only 2 years, or it could take 7 years, depending on what what your options are, because obviously everything's bespoke. Now, Our car, I think, took 3 years, partially just because of, you know, the level we went to in the spec. You know, I went over to Sweden a couple of times just trying to refine every, literally, nut and bolt. And, you know, we had colour samples of bolts to try and make them the right gold, and the wheels took, I think, a month, 2 months to make perfect in terms of getting the right sample, and the blue took forever, you know, but to get it all as one was, it took a long time, but it was definitely 100% worth it, 100%. So what happened with the first time I drove the Regera was, it was the last time we went to finalise the spec of the car, in terms of the car was built. They wanted me to go over, tick it all off and make sure everything was fine. Now, you're meted at the factory by Haldora and Christian, and when Haldora von Koenigsegg comes up to you and goes, "I cannot wait for you to see your car," that was a moment when I was like, wow, this is going to be something. This is like, it sort of clicked going, I'm about to see the car that we've waited and spec'd for a long time. And we went downstairs into their workshop, and there it was, and it took probably an hour for me just to get over it. Like, genuinely, I'd never ever been speechless before, but seeing that for the first time, I genuinely was blown away. I had no intention of driving the car, and Christian just turned around to me and said, "Do you want to drive it?" And I was like, of course, I'm not going to turn that down, absolutely. So he hopped in the car with me. We went on probably a 45-minute round trip of just driving the Regera for the first time, and it was, to say that, because I idolised Christian before we were ever to do a Koenigsegg, almost before we were to do cars, and so to be sitting in your Regera with Christian von Koenigsegg, and it wasn't, "Oh, Christian, what did you do here?" It's, we were telling jokes, we were having a laugh, and it was like, this is a moment that I will never ever forget. It's so surreal. You know, it was unbelievable. The car is custom bespoke blue carbon with diamond in the lacquer, accented by 24-carat gold lines that are hand applied, every single one of them. It's got the bespoke blue Alcantara interior. It's the first Regera to have the drift stitch pattern on the seats. Gold stitching, gold bolts, everything that was chrome or dark chrome was gold, bar the centre console, which is now grey. The wheels, first ever Koenigsegg to have gold wheels. Yeah. Pretty crazy. The car is producing around 1700 brake horsepower, that's in the engine, so to the wheels it's 1500. The hybrid battery comes up with 700 brake horsepower. The internal combustion engine is 1100 brake horsepower, so it's 1800, but once it gets trickled down all the way to the wheels, it's running 1500 brake horsepower. 0 to 60 in I think 2.8, top speed of 250 mile an hour, of which it's the fastest car to do 0 to 250 mile an hour back to 0 in I think around 27 or 28 seconds. And something to wrap your head around with that is the fact that the 28 seconds is back to 0. So doing 250, you're probably doing it in, I don't know, 21 seconds or so. So it's just unbelievable. And we will be doing it in August at VMAX. One of the nicest things about Koenigsegg that they've always featured on every car is the fact that the roof is stowable. You can take the roof off. They say it takes one person realistically to be safe. You know, you're wielding a massive piece of carbon fibre with gold on it, so you can have 2 people doing it. But the nice thing is you can take it off easily, it is easy, put it in the front, and you've instantly got a Targa, which is really nice. The one problem is there is no storage in the car, so if you take the roof off and you put it in the front, you instantly lose storage. We always joke saying that if you own a Koenigsegg, generally you'll see a Rolls Royce behind it following with the luggage, because that is just the case. You can't put anything in it bar, I mean, you could have a tiny little travel bag, but that's about it. It's great to drive, but to have the people around you is a pain. Because what happens is people who don't know what it is want to know what it is, and people who do know what it is are even worse. So what happens is you're driving along, say 70 mile an hour on the motorway, and you've got vans that are literally cutting you up, driving really aggressively just to get photos. And obviously you don't want to say, you know, go away, because they're passionate about the cars. But the one thing that's nice about it is the visibility, to be fair. That's That's one thing that is impressive. It takes a lot of getting used to because it is a square. It's like out of a fighter jet. You can't see anything above you, you can't see anything below. It's just, you see the bonnet and everything around you. But once you get used to the visibility, it's an experience. Personally, I love it. The one thing that is strange, you hop out of that and hop into something like a pista. The cabin feels huge on a pista, but then yet the actual volume of the cabin in a Koenigsegg is bigger. So you feel confined, but you got a lot of space. In terms of noise, minimal. You're obviously at 70 miles an hour, you're probably only doing 2,000 RPM, so that's quite strange. It's lovely because it means if you go on a long journey, it's really pleasant. It's just, you know, you cruise along, but when you put your foot down, the revs peak. So the first time we ever properly went for it in the car, in terms of put our foot down, it was quite strange because it wasn't what I was expecting. It was much more than what I was expecting. I was expecting something to be like the Agera, which is instantly aggressive, gear shift, instantly aggressive, so it gives you that split-second brake. Because this is so much faster and there is no gear change, you're literally begging for a gear change because you're being pushed so hard into your seat, and the faster you go, it's not like it sort of peters off, it keeps accelerating harder and harder and harder. So it's the only car I've ever been in where you accelerate, get thrown into the seat and you keep getting pushed harder and harder. You know, when you gear shift in a car, it gives you that relief. Well, in this there is obviously no gear shift, and so it is relentless. In terms of trips and top speed runs, we want to do stuff with Supercar Driver 100% because we've never been able to do a proper tour with you guys. SCD has always been one that I've wanted to get on, so we will 100% be doing some cool tours with you guys. Sort of go from there, really. I mean, we're very lax. I mean, generally, if someone says to us, listen, next Sunday we've got an event on, we'll go, as long as it's not out in Sweden or Switzerland or somewhere, you know, really far. We're pretty open. It's why people who organise events, they get annoyed with us because they say, can you come to this event in like 6 months' time? Like, literally ask me a day before and there's a good chance I'll come, you know, so yeah. It is definitely a keeper for the time being. We bought this car to keep and enjoy. Luckily, the Koenigsegg is not mileage dependent. You're not worried about certain mileage. I mean, we did, I think, 8,000 miles in 2 years on our Koenigsegg, on our previous one. So this one we're going to do probably more. There's always that little inkling in your head thinking, should I change for something quicker? But there's always going to be something prettier and faster. So you find something you love and you stick with it. And I can't see anything being more enjoyable than that Regera, to be fair. We've been a member now from Supercar Driver for about 2 or 3 years, and I was always sceptical of car clubs. We have hosted hundreds of car clubs at the museum, all for charity, and they're all the same. When I was approached by Adam, it was very interesting because it was, once again, referring back to the Koenigsegg scene. It was much more of a family-based thing. I mean, I'm calling Adam at 11 o'clock at night most nights, chatting about, you know, events and things like that, and so we were debating to join, and we just thought, well, we've got the collection. They host amazing events, like genuinely really, really good events. And when they're not hosting them, they're turning up to all the events we were at. So it was like, if we sign up, then it means that we can go to events with a whole new group of friends and people who are like-minded. And it meant that you got, I mean, we thought, you know, you get access to stuff that we wouldn't have normally, even with a Koenigsegg, you know, you don't get always access to certain things. And, you know, SCD have always been just spot on every single time, and that's genuinely no other club I join.